right here on WNRI 99.9 on the FM dial, 1380 on the AM dial. And this is a very big day in our country's history. It's Election Day 2024. And there are a lot of very contentious elections going on locally, right here in the city of Woonsocket, the nearby city of Cumberland, where I live. And then also nationwide, of course, we have this thing called a presidential election. And there are definitely there's a lot of passion on both sides. And the country appears to be very divided. If you are watching the mainstream media, I don't know that it is as equally divided as the mainstream media presents it to be. I think that it's not quite that divided. I think there are very strong feelings on both sides of the equation, but it's definitely an election that will have significance for years, if not decades, to come. So we're going to talk a little bit about the economic data, housing, mortgage rates, etc., and how that plays into the election day. The politics part of it. As a real estate professional, real estate is my business, is my occupation, but politics is something that I have to pay attention to, have to be engaged in, because decisions that are made by our politicians have a direct impact on not just real estate professionals like myself, but on homeowners and aspiring homeowners, renters, folks like you. And, the National Association of Realtors is the only organization that lobbies Congress on behalf of all homeowners, people that have already purchased homes. They bought a home. NAR, the National Association of Realtors, lobbies Congress on their behalf. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, some of the significant issues that the National Association of Realtors and other real estate professionals are concerned about, and then we'll just talk about the real estate business in general. I want to start off though by thanking our sponsors, of course. Vern Rainville, public insurance adjuster. Vern Rainville is licensed by the state of Rhode Island. He works for you, the homeowner, the property owner. So if you have a claim or think you have a claim against your homeowner's policy, give Vern a call, 484-300-8495. That's 484-300-8495. And Vern will answer your questions, explain the process, and let you know if he can help you or not. If you think you have a claim, even if it was as much as a year and a half, as far back as 2 years ago, Vern may be able to help you. But the first thing you have to do is give Vern a call. 484-300-8495. That's Vern Rainville, public insurance adjuster. And of course, Compass Title and Escrow. We give Joe Luca Realtor, we give all of our business for buyers and sellers of commercial and residential real estate to Compass Title to handle the closing and title work, the escrow and title work. Okay, Anthony Betancourt and his team they do a great job. They have the best interests of my clients at heart, so they're always on the lookout. It's kind of like it's just they're like sentries. They make sure that there are no surprises that are going to pop up during the real estate transaction, because of course surprises in real estate transactions are never good. So we try to anticipate issues ahead of time, so that way we don't have surprises. And Compass Title and Escrow does a great job at that. And also, the best move you'll ever make, the number one movers in Southern New England, G. Metz Moving and Storage. They do a great job. They have their own trucks, their workers, their movers work for G. Metz. They're not people who are outside contractors. They don't get people off of Craigslist or other, temporary for hire individuals. These are folks that work for the company and pays attention to what they're doing. That's good for you because they're taking care of your belongings as if they were their own. Okay, that's GMET's Moving and Storage. If you'd like to get a quote or schedule a move, it's very easy. Just jump online, go to gmetsmoving.com. That's G as in George, M as in Michael, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, Z as in Zebra, moving.com. gmetsmoving.com. They will give you a price, and or you can schedule the move on that website. What I ask you to do is be honest in your assessment of how much furniture, how many boxes you have, how many rooms of furniture you have. Because, again, surprises aren't good, and if you underestimate the amount of materials that you are going to be moving, and they get there with one truck and it's really a 2-truck job, no one is going to be happy because that means the workers are going to be working longer and they're going to have to make multiple trips, which means your hourly bill is going to increase. So try to be as honest as you can, and if you're unsure, ask them and they'll walk you through the process. That's GMET's Moving and Storage. Check them out, gmetsmoving.com. Even if you only need to move furniture from one side of the house to the other, or remove the furniture and put it in storage while you're having work done in the house, having new floors put in, carpets torn out, whatever it is, GMET's, those are the folks you want to reach out to, gmetsmoving.com. So you got that part out of the way, thanking our sponsors for keeping the Joe Luca Real Estate Show on the air. And again, folks, this is my 11th year. We're wrapping up year 11 in 2024. So, I'm very grateful that you folks tune in every week and listen on, terrestrial radio and watch me on, if it's YouTube or Facebook or wherever you catch me, or even listen on Spotify because the show gets uploaded to Spotify at the end of the night. So I'm very grateful for that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the real estate market as we speak because, interest rates, and this is going to kind of dovetail into what I want to talk about a little bit later. Interest rates have not done what many folks have expected them to do. Last month the Fed lowered interest rates, the Fed funds rate, and everyone was expecting mortgage interest rates to drop as well, but they didn't. They've gone up. In fact, as of today, the 30-year fixed rate for a mortgage is 7.04%. The FHA 6.57, VA 6.58. Folks, these are the best rates you can get. You have to have prime, top-notch credit. Buying buying a single-family home that you're going to live in. It's going to be your primary residence. If you're buying a second home, a vacation home, an investment property, a multifamily, a condominium, the rate goes higher. If you don't have top-tier credit, your rates are going to be higher. Now, maybe I get this information from Mortgage News Daily. Every mortgage company, lender has a lot of, there are different programs that they have, so maybe you could get something a little bit lower than this, these interest rates, but this is a barometer that I use every week, and I don't change my source, so that way it's always the same source, and it's verifiable. You can go to mortgagenewsdaily.com to see it with your own 2 eyes, but 7.04%. Now, rates have been higher. They were higher a few months ago, and they have been lower. And even though rates were higher before, in Rhode Island, we are experiencing rates of equity accumulation year over year at the pace of 10 to 12%. That means homes are increasing in value 10 to 12% year over year. So the price in October of 2024 is over 10% higher than it was in October of 2023. Okay. The same thing was true in September. The same thing was true in August. The median price of a single-family home in Rhode Island is now almost $500,000. I'm in the business. I still find that, surprising. And these rates of equity accumulation were occurring in Rhode Island when interest rates were in the 7.5, 8% range. So even though interest rates were high, people were still buying homes. Now, you might say, well, Joe, I read that home sales are down. How is this true? How are values going up if home sales are down? Well, the reason, home sales is the number of homes that are sold. Home prices are the median price of a home is the average, price of a home that's sold in a given time period. And that number has been increasing because economics 101, supply and demand. We have more buyers even at the higher interest rates than we do sellers. So right now we have a little over 1,000 single-family homes listed on MLS for sale in the state of Rhode Island. And just for perspective, we have about 7,000 realtors. If every realtor only had one buyer, that means we have a 7-to-1 ratio of buyers to sellers. So that's a lot of intensity. That's a lot of demand pushing your home values higher. Okay? Let that sink in. And now, that's if every realtor only had one buyer. I have 30 people that are looking to buy homes. Me personally, just one real estate agent, one realtor. And I know a lot of my clients, my colleagues, also have, many buyers who are looking for homes. Now, everybody's at a different pace. Some people are looking to buy a house right away. Some people want to buy in the spring. Some people want to buy next year. But there are lots of folks who are looking to buy homes. Now, what I would like to point out is a piece of data, and the National Association of Realtors they have an annual profile of home buyers and sellers, and I want to go over some of the high points, the highlights of this report, and it ties into what you would expect. It ties into the data that I just reported and what you would expect. So first-time home buyers dropped to the lowest historical share of all home buyers since data collection began, which was in 1981. Why? Because first-time home buyers face limited inventory, continued erosion of housing affordability, prices have been going up, and difficulty saving for a down payment. Why are they having a hard time saving for down payment? Because rents are so high. I was talking with a colleague of mine today. He has a two-bedroom condominium that is renting for $2,200 a month. 2 bedrooms, Point number 2, household income jumped among successful home buyers to all-time highs. That makes sense. The folks whose offers are being accepted are the ones who are making more money. Home buyers who are able to purchase a home in the last year with the rise in home prices and the rise in interest rates had to have higher incomes. As interest rates went higher, you needed to have more income to qualify for a mortgage. Something else, first-time and repeat buyers had all-time highs for their age. That means the average age for first-time home buyers and repeat home buyers is older. Something else, and I've noticed this myself anecdotally, is that multi-generational home buyers have increased. It's an all-time high of 17% of all home buyers are multi-generational. So this could involve housing an elderly relative, adult children over the age of 18, or families of other makeups for cost savings to buy a larger home. Another highlight, in 2024, the down payment was the highest for first-time home buyers since 1997, and the highest for repeat home buyers since 2003. Again, this makes sense, because if you need to, in order to qualify for payment, you may be required to put more money down to lower your payment. And this ties into the previous data point that incomes for home buyers, first-time and repeat home buyers, are higher than ever before. Also, all cash home buyers this year were at 26%. That means more than 1 out of 4 purchases are all cash. Okay. It's important to note that this data is collected among primary residence buyers only, not, they're not second home buyers or vacation home buyers or investors. This is home buyers buying homes that they're going to live in full time. Okay. I point that out because for repeat home buyers, they've earned housing equity in the home and are able to make the next purchase, perhaps in retirement, without financing, either by accessing equity or selling the home or something to that effect, or a reverse mortgage. Okay. Also, let's see. This is something that I like to hear, and my real estate professional colleagues like to hear. 88% of home buyers used a real estate agent to purchase their home. Buyers want a real estate agent who is not only able to help them find the right home, but is going to help them negotiate and help explain and understand the real estate market. Okay, that's why I try to encourage everyone to use a realtor, a full-time experienced realtor. I say full-time because there's so much data that's coming out literally every day. If it's about the market, if it's about interest rates, if it's about technology, things that as a real estate professional we need to be aware of. If I had to work 40 hours a week for someone else, I could never keep up. I could never keep up and do my job. And as a full-time realtor, there are things that I have to do every day to remain a viable business as an individual real estate agent. So doing all of that work every day, it's a challenge to still keep up on everything, and I'm full-time. Okay? And then also negotiation. I have helped more people than I can count help them buy and sell a home. I've taken classes in negotiation, so I'm an expert at negotiating. And again, I'm always taking classes, reading books, reading articles, reading blog posts. So I understand the real estate market, and I try to explain it to my clients so that they understand the market too. All right. And another point, 90% of home sellers used a real estate agent to sell their home, because home sellers also want an agent to help them price their home competitively, market their home for sale, and find a qualified buyer, and to do so in as short a time period as possible. That being said, the way the market is now, it takes a longer period of time for homes to sell. Buyers are a little bit more pragmatic and measured in their home search process, and they're not buying home, even though there's intensity there, they're not buying homes as if they're going to be homeless tomorrow. Okay? And they're considering the potential shortcomings of a house or downfalls of a property. And of course, if they're working with a good realtor, that real estate professional would inform them of that. Another reason why, if you are a home buyer, you need to work with a realtor, with a real estate professional. Look for someone who has been in the business for more than a minute, who's full-time. If they're not full-time, make sure they're on a team or they have a mentor that will help them and guide them through the process. Okay? Because most folks buy a handful of houses in their entire lifetime. If it's 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. And it is, if not the largest investment, it's one of the largest investments you're ever going to make. So when the median price of a single family home is about $500,000, you don't want someone who's going to make a mistake that could cost you 10%, because that's $50,000. Why would you want to overpay or undersell your home? Okay. Folks, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 FM 1380 on the AM dial. You can also catch us on Spotify, and then we rebroadcast the show every Saturday at 1 p.m. right here on WNRI. And you can check us out on LinkedIn and Facebook as well if we are Facebook or LinkedIn friends. Thanking our sponsors, Compass Title and Escrow. They handle the closing for our buyers and sellers. GMETS Moving and Storage, the best move you'll ever make. Check them out at gmetsmoving.com. And of course, Vern Rainville, Public Insurance Adjuster. Vern, licensed by the state of Rhode Island to help you, the homeowner, receive the maximum compensation you're entitled to from your insurance policy when you have a claim. Just give them a call, 484-300-8495. That's 484-300-8495. Now, I want to talk about some data points. Okay, last Friday, November 1st, we received the jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And in the month of October, a whopping 12,000 jobs were created for the entire country, not Rhode Island, not New England, for the entire United States. Net creation of 12,000 jobs. Now, they were anticipating over 100,000 new jobs for the month of October, but it came in at 12,000. It was only 12,000 when the government themselves created 40,000 new jobs. Well, Joe, if the government created 40,000, how come there are only 12,000 new jobs? Because there were other segments of the economy where jobs contracted. Okay, they laid people off and didn't hire new people. Okay, they thinned the ranks of their employees. Okay, if one industry is down 26%, another one's down 30%. Okay, those numbers were negative. So even though the government added 40,000, the other industries pulled it down. Just for perspective, the average increase in jobs for the month of October is about 1 million. 1 million, Joe. How come there are so many jobs that are created in the month of October normally? Well, normally everything is getting geared up for the holiday season. So you have the delivery companies, UPS and FedEx, that are hiring temporary help. Okay, you have distribution centers that are hiring temporary help for the Christmas season to handle all the packages. You have retailers that are hiring temporary help for the Christmas season, the holiday season. That hasn't happened. Okay, and that is not a good sign for the strength of the economy. Okay, so jobs were weak. Also, yesterday, November 4th, factory orders report came out, and it was down 0.5%. So factory orders are declining. This is at a time before the holiday season when you would expect them to be increasing. Okay, so, and that is following a trend because the month before it was also down a little over it was 0.7% decline. Okay, so we have things that are not going well in the economy, and there are a number of reasons for this. One, we have persistent inflation. We have sticky inflation. Well, Joe, I thought the inflation rate was down. Well, yeah, the inflation rate is lower than it was, but it's still there. It's like, if I'm gaining 10 pounds a month, and then this month I only gain 5 pounds, well, I still gained 5 pounds on top of the 10 pounds I was gaining every other month. So my weight is still increasing. It's just not increasing at the same pace that it was increasing before. That's what's going on with the inflation in this country. Pick a segment of the economy. Electricity, home heating oil, natural gas, gas for your car. Okay, the gasoline for your car, those prices have come down recently, but it's still higher than it was 4 years ago. Forget about groceries. Okay, I mean, $6, $7 for a gallon of milk, eggs, meat. Never mind packaged foods where they give you a smaller size and charge you the same or more money. Shrinkflation, that's called. So these are things that are not good in our economy, and we really cannot continue on this trajectory if we hope to be in a better place financially, if we hope to retire comfortably, save money to buy a home, our first home, save money to get married, save money to have a child, send kids to private school, whatever it is. If everything else, if inflation, that's a silent tax, it's eating up your income, you're never going to get ahead. Real wages, even though we've experienced increases in wages, real wages have not increased. When you factor in inflation, it's negative. Why am I talking about this on election day? Well, I know it's a little bit late, but hopefully my smart listeners and viewers were aware of these data points and factored this into the decisions you made about whom you were going to vote for. Okay? There are specific things that need to be done to grow an economy, and there are specific things that should not be done to grow an economy. Government spending, printing money, does not help the economy. It doesn't contribute anything to the economy. When the government prints money and spends money, if it's hiring IRS workers, if it's building buildings, that doesn't do anything to create more money. It's just spending money. If you have a private business that spends money, the private business is spending money for one reason and one reason alone, because they want to make more of a profit. The only reason businesses exist is to make a profit. So if it's a mom and pop grocery convenience store or liquor store, or if it's Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, Stop and Shop, the only reason they exist is to make a profit. If they can't make a profit, they'll close up. If they can't make a profit, they will cease to operate, because you cannot, in the real world, operate your personal budget or a business budget in the negative. Because at some point, the banks are going to stop lending money to the business that's not profitable. And if they don't have access to capital, they can't pay their employees. So they're either going to start laying off employees or eventually close up shop. Look at California. How many businesses are closing up shop and leaving the state of California? Not individual small mom and pop stores, big chains which have lots of access to capital, because it's too expensive. When you increase the minimum wage so high that an unskilled worker is making an exorbitant pay, they're not generating that much money from their job performance. I was out in California back in September, and there was a gas station that was looking to hire people, and they were trying to hire people at $20 an hour just to stand behind a cash register. $20 an hour. We can't continue on this trajectory. We need to grow the economy from the bottom up. Make it easier for small businesses to become larger businesses and eventually big businesses. encourage big businesses to reinvest their capital in this country, not elsewhere. That's why this is the best country in the world, because historically we have been the best place, the best location, the best political government to invest money, for businesses to invest their money. Why? Because we're politically stable. Okay, even the changes, the differences between the Republican and the Democrat Party, when it goes from one administration to an administration of the other party, it's not a big change. It's not like in some countries around the world where it's like a 180-degree change. There are certain issues that separate us, but by and large, it's stable. And by and large, our leaders, our political leaders, have not done things to stand in the way of profitability for corporations, and have not stood in the way of corporations growing themselves. That's kind of been changing with our current administration. There are several things that President Biden has done that have made it more difficult for businesses to survive. Well, Joe, what are you talking about? What has the Biden administration done to make it harder for businesses to survive? Well, let's look at electric vehicles. They strong-armed the automotive industry to making electric vehicles, tried to bribe buyers to purchase electric vehicles with a tax credit. But with the exception of Tesla, all of the other companies are losing money on electric vehicle production because no one's buying those electric vehicles. Look at Ford. They just stopped production of the electric F-150 pickup truck until January, February. Stopped producing the vehicles because they weren't selling. They have a ton of them on the parking lots of the dealers. People are not buying them. Why? Because it doesn't make sense for everyone. I think hybrid vehicles are the way we should go. But I think the marketplace should dictate when that should be. The government should not be in the business of telling private companies how to operate. Excuse me. That whenever the government gets involved in private business, it creates problems. When they got involved in the banking business in the late 90s and early 2000s, telling the banks they had to lend money to anyone who applied for a mortgage, regardless of their job status and their income or their assets. Those were the ninja loans: no income, no job, or assets. NINJA. The government told banks what to do, so they had to lend money to people who couldn't qualify to buy a home. Guess what? They weren't qualified to buy a home, so they fell behind and the homes were foreclosed on. Banks don't want to be in the real estate business. They want to lend money and then make their income on the interest for the loan that they extended to the borrower. When the government forces the hand of the lender to lend money to unqualified buyers, it's just a matter of time before the bank has to foreclose on that property. And now they're in the real estate business. And that created all the problems we had in 2009, 10, and 11, and 12. The government needs to stay out of the business. The government, with this administration, trying to bring internet to rural areas. $40 billion was spent to bring internet service to rural areas in this country. Not one home has been connected to internet as a result of that program. I don't understand why it's such a big deal, because Elon Musk, with his Starlink, he sent it over to the Ukraine so that they would have access to internet service. He sent it to Western North Carolina so all those people who were literally wiped out from Hurricane Helene, so they had access to the internet and could communicate. And he did that for free. He did that in a matter of days. The federal government couldn't provide internet service to rural areas in, I think it's been 2 years, at a cost of $40 billion. Whose $40 billion is that? That's our money. Or maybe it's our kids' or grandkids' money because maybe they just printed the money. That's what we've been doing in this country, printing money. We need to grow the economy so we can start to pay down the long-term debt so that our children and grandchildren are not saddled with that debt. You know, I've talked about the economy with respect to housing, and we have more buyers than sellers. And, you know, when you propose a $25,000 tax credit for home buyers, that will do nothing to help address the housing crisis. That will actually exacerbate it because now more people are going to come to the table who want to buy a home. Well, we already have more people than we need. So that's going to make the problem worse. To address the problem, that $25,000 tax credit should have been provided to builders, developers. Then you'd see more homes being constructed. And I've talked to builders about this and verified it. And they said absolutely that would make it much more feasible to build a home. When a politician says, I will create more housing, what are you going to do? Wave a magic wand? It's not that easy. It's not that easy because you have, most times, local municipal regulations and building codes, state building codes, local regulations, zoning ordinance, etc., that need to be addressed. Those are things that really are dragged out or drag out the process. The federal government has no control over local and state governments to do anything about that. That's not the way our government was structured. We are a constitutional republic, so we have local government, we have state government. In some states, not Rhode Island, but like in Massachusetts, there's county government mixed in there, and then we have the federal government. The federal government cannot do anything to increase home production, home construction, unless they start building homes themselves, which, as I mentioned before, the federal government is terrible when it sticks its nose in private enterprise. The federal government cannot run a business. Look what they did when they had Conrail and Amtrak. Those had to be privatized because they ran them so inefficiently. Okay, we could talk about the post office, which is kind of a separate entity from the federal government, but there are a lot of policies or ways of operating that the post office has, which makes it very inefficient. Because again, the post office does not have the mandate to make a profit. Because if they need money, the federal government will kick in money, will write a check. UPS has to be profitable. If they're not profitable, there are going to be a lot of angry shareholders. Ditto for Federal Express. If they are not efficient and they don't create a profit, heads will roll, I assure you of that. That's not true with anything that the federal government is involved in. They will just give more money. $40 billion to create internet service in rural areas. Nothing happened. All the money, what was it, 10, 14 years ago? The money that was given to solar companies went belly up. What happened to all that money? Perhaps there should have been some contingency, some strings attached when the federal government wrote a check to those companies. That's not the way the government works. You know, we send these people to Washington, many of whom are there for multiple terms. So they never live in the real world because they work for the government, and the first thing they start doing after they're elected is laying the foundation for a re-election. Why is it that we have politicians who, when they become elected to office, they have minimal net worth, and after several terms in office, they're multi-millionaires? How does that happen when you're only making, what is it, a couple $100,000 a year? And that couple $100,000 a year, they have to pay expenses out of that and taxes, just like everyone else. Okay, so, we need to really, and I may be talking too late, it's, 14 minutes before the hour, but hopefully everybody who's listening was aware of these data points and these issues that should have been considered when deciding who you wanted to vote for. Thank you, Jonah, for the quick compliment. I just saw your message come in. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. It's really unfortunate that we've gotten to the place that we're at right now in our economy. We've gotten to the place we are right now in the global political arena. We have a war in Europe, we have a war in the Middle East, and we have a lot of tension in the Far East. That's not good. Our allies don't know if they can depend on us anymore because we haven't been a dependable friend. Why is it that a couple of weeks ago, our government leaked plans that Israel had to invade Iran? How did that happen? That's like telling your best friend your deepest, darkest secret, and then you go to work the next day and everybody knows what you told your friend. Not cool. Not cool. So we're in a situation where this country, our position on the global stage has diminished. Countries resent us because we've been using the dollar to intimidate them and coerce them to do things that we want them to do or do not want them to do. So they're forming their own medium of exchange to replace the dollar. Now, is that really going to happen? I don't know, but they're certainly taking steps. They've been doing this for a few years. They just had, a meeting, was it last week or the week before? And that could create a lot of problems if the dollar is no longer the reserve currency and there's an alternate currency. Because when we print dollars, we need people to buy our debt. If no one is buying our debt, that means the Fed has to buy our debt. So think about this for a moment. That would be like, Jeepers Crow, I don't have enough money to pay my bills this month, so I'm going to print my own money and use it to pay my bills. That's what the federal government has been doing. As opposed to having other folks provide the money for the T-bills and the Treasury notes and bills. Other people investing in those so they can receive the interest on their investment. if we're printing money and buying those notes ourselves, we're paying interest to ourselves. It doesn't make any sense. But that's what we've had to do. We're probably going to have to continue doing this because I forget the number, but a huge percentage, a very significant percentage of our debt in this country is on short-term notes within 5 years. I don't know if it's 50, 60, 70% of our debt is going to be refinanced. What do you mean, Joe, be refinanced? Well, if somebody bought a 5-year treasury 3 years ago, 5 years from 3 years ago, which is 2 years from now, we're going to have to pay them for the amount of money that they purchased the treasury for and the interest to do. How do we do that? If we're still operating at a deficit, which we have been, we print more money. How long will that continue before people are like, wait a minute, they're giving me money that's useless, doesn't have any value. There's nothing backing it up. It's just a piece of paper. If the country, if our government is not fiscally responsible, we are not financially viable for the long term. Well, Joe, what does this mean for me? I'm just a little old guy here in Rhode Island trying to, work, get my pay, and feed my family. How does this impact me? Well, when the government is printing all of this money, this is what creates inflation. And the quicker this cycle happens, the worse the inflation gets. Look at countries, socialist and communist countries, and look at their inflation rates, where they just print the money. Look at Venezuela. Argentina, back in the day, you have inflation rates that are in the hundreds of percent. You cannot continue like that. We do not want to get there. This is the United States of America. We are the shining city on the hill that everyone looks to. My ancestors 100 years ago came here from Italy and Sicily. They came here because they were poor agricultural farmers, unable to make a sustainable wage in Sicily and in Italy, southern Italy. They came here. There was work. Yes, it was factory work. They had to work hard. But they were able to come here, work hard, save money, and buy a home, buy real estate, become a landlord. That never would have happened in Italy. Just like today, fast forward 100 some odd years, that's not going to happen in the Dominican Republic. It's not going to happen in Mexico or Argentina or Venezuela. That's why those folks want to come here. That's why people from Africa come here. That's why people from Asia come here, because they'll never be able to accomplish the dream of home ownership in their own country because they can't get a job that will pay them a living wage. We don't want to be like that. So why is our government mimicking the behaviors that got those countries into the situation that they are in or have been in? We need to do things the right way. It's not going to be easy. I think the first challenge that we all have is today's election. Hopefully everyone made the right decision, and we will have a president that will guide the country, cut back on unnecessary spending. Okay, this government spends money. We have inefficiencies that are just intractable. We have entities within our government that have been there for literally generations. And we, the voting public, have nothing to say about it because they're not elected. We can get rid of our congressmen, our senators, and our presidents, but the people that work inside the government, we can't vote them out. So it's going to be a difficult challenge. It's going to take a lot of time before we can turn things around, but we have to start at some place. We have to start at some place, and this is a perfect time, perfect place for us to start. You know, we know what both candidates have done. They both have a track record. And we need to make a decision which track record we want to replicate, to continue, to augment. Okay? Both candidates have had ample opportunity to present their plan with specific solutions and actions and tasks to do in order to get the government where we all want it. And it's more than just having a checklist or a task list or a to-do list. It's very, very complicated. There are really smart people who are smarter than me who put a lot of time into putting together an economic plan that is executable, because we do not have, this is not an autocracy. And when someone is elected president, they can't just say, I'm going to do this, because you need to get it through Congress and then through the Senate. It doesn't appear that we're going to have the same party in control of all three branches of government. So whoever is president needs to be able to negotiate and make a deal with the opposing party. Who has a track record of that? Who has been successful at that? Who doesn't have anything to show, any success to show for the track record? Words alone do not make a good president. Okay? So folks, we are coming up to the last minute of the show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Hopefully everyone learned something tonight from my little explanation. And in the final analysis, I'm not convinced that the reduced Fed funds rate is going to lower mortgage interest rates. I think eventually they will come down, but not lower than the sixes. We're probably going to be in the low sixes next year. I don't see it going any lower than that. So if you have any questions, please reach out. This is Joe Luca, REMAX 401-409-5030. I look forward to hearing from you, and we will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.